What's up, guys? It's Noah and Logan back with another episode of Courtside TV. Today we're going to be doing another episode just about the NBA. We're going to discuss the playoff race, or I guess it's not a race anymore, just the playoffs in general, first round matchups, and we're going to talk about our award picks for the regular season, and then maybe get into a little Lakers drama. So, first thing is, we got the playoffs going on, we got some good matchups. Logan, why don't you start talking about some of these matchups?
Yeah, so I'll start by looking in the East. Obviously, Detroit ended up getting the 8th seed, so they're going to face the Bucks. And out of the entire playoffs, the Bucks, in the whole league, you could say they're the best team this year. Obviously, Golden State is the most tested, and we know they've been there. We know they've won it all multiple times. But this year, the Bucks have looked like the best team. So I think that's a really scary thing for it's like Detroit. It's like, yeah, they made the playoffs, but at the same time, they got to face the best team in the league. Mm-hmm. I'll be interested to see who they put on Giannis. I would assume maybe Blake would be the best matchup for Giannis. I mean, I think it's like Glenn Robinson at the 3 right now for Detroit. So that might be a little tricky. Blake Griffin is not 100%, so that's not a good thing. I've heard he's not even close to 100%, which is not good for Detroit. But one thing Detroit does have, obviously, is the rebounding. You got Andre Drummond, who led the league in rebounds. You got Thon Maker, who was on the Bucks, who Detroit now has. He's a 7-footer. So Detroit has rebounding, and if they can control the rebounding, then they might be able to steal a game. I could see Detroit stealing maybe one game in that series. And then Boston, Indiana should be a great matchup. Obviously, Indiana doesn't have Oladipo. Philly and Brooklyn, I think Brooklyn's hungry. I think they're going to come out and, really show, maybe take a couple games. It could be an interesting series. Because, Embiid has his nights, and Toronto and Orlando, that probably should be a clean sweep, honestly.
Should be.
If I had to say anything. I mean, what do you think about the East, really?
I think, you said Milwaukee and Detroit. I think Detroit does have the extra big guys because they have Blake Griffin and Andre Drummond. But, like you said, there's only a few guys in the league that can even really contend guarding with Giannis without just straight up double teaming him. And I was just looking at Detroit's roster. Yeah, there's not really going to be anybody on that team that's going to be able to guard him. I think Giannis will have a field day, especially because you thought you were going to be able to let him shoot, and now some games he's not a great 3-shooter. But if you leave him open, he can still hit it.
The only reason I say Blake Griffin's athleticism. That's about all he's got really that can compete with Giannis. But sorry, go ahead.
And then Boston, Indiana. I think Marcus Smart's out, but Indiana is also missing Oladipo. A couple, I don't see Boston having much of a problem with them. I think that'll be maybe not a sweep, but it should be like a fairly quick series because, it's hard to count Boston out with the amount of talent that they have. It's kind of like, last year, I think, maybe it was the year before, Golden State was a 2 seed. Oh, yeah, it was last year. And it's like against Houston, which, they did, but it's like at the end of the day, they're just that talented.
Right.
If you go to Philadelphia and Brooklyn, I saw something that said Joel Embiid might miss the first game, possibly more. So I think Brooklyn, I still think Philadelphia will win, but I think if there is going to be somebody out east that gets, the upset, I think it would be Brooklyn because if they can steal a game in Philadelphia and come back and defend their home court, it'll be tough to see. I mean, obviously, Philadelphia is arguably the most talented starting lineup in the league. I mean, or one of, if not. Yeah. And then definitely. Toronto, I think Orlando has Vucevic, who's a very talented guy, but Toronto's a very deep team. Yeah. I think Orlando's going to struggle against them.
And also, like Noah said, that the Brooklyn Nets might be able to pull off that upset. Also, you got Jared Allen, one of the best defensive bigs in the league, going up against one of the best offensive bigs in the league, and Embiid. And like Noah said, if Embiid misses that game 1 and Brooklyn can steal a game in Philadelphia, that series could be very, very interesting. Okay, so moving on to the West, we've got Golden State. The Warriors playing the Clippers in the first round. The Clippers started really hot at the beginning of the year, then kind of slipped down. A lot of people thought they might fall out of the playoffs. The Kings might get in there, but the Clippers ended up making it. I think that'll probably be a sweep. The Clippers have solid players, but they don't have that, that star guy. Then moving on to Houston, you got the Rockets and Jazz. That should be an interesting series, but I think Houston, they're, had a rough end to last year, obviously in the conference finals against the Warriors. So I think they got something to prove, and they want to get that second round matchup with the Warriors. Maybe the Jazz steal a game or two because the Jazz are a very, very good team. And then that once again, the 3-6 in the East was the one we said could be an upset. The 3-6 in the West is also, it's Trailblazers and Thunder. Thunder somehow get a 6 seed. We know how good they can play when they're at their best with Paul George and Russell Westbrook. That's a scary team. So should be a very, very good series. And then you got the Nuggets and Spurs. Obviously, the Nuggets have been one of the hottest teams this year, one of the best teams. But you can't count out any Greg Popovich coach team ever. So, and DeMar DeRozan, obviously, and LaMarcus Aldridge, they're both playing pretty well. So, what do you think about the West?
I think Golden State shouldn't have any problems. I think that it might not be a sweep simply because LA is, they play hard and they play together. They have a deep bench. Like, Lou Will and Montrezl Harrell are two of the best bench players this season. I think that LA could get a game just because, everybody's going to write them off, and that's how they've been playing all season, just written off. I think that could give them some motivation. Houston and Utah, I think that game or that series could definitely go the distance, go 7 games. It's hard to say who's going to win. I think, Houston has Capella, the Jazz have Gobert. Harden and Donovan Mitchell obviously aren't the same. Obviously Harden's better, but I think, the Jazz are a really good defensive team, and I honestly think how well Harden plays in the series, because everybody says Harden's great in regular season and struggles in the playoffs, he chokes. Yeah. So he'll either have something to prove and prove it to everybody and play well, and maybe you can just totally carry them to a series. I think he's definitely talented enough to do it if he can play in that continued role, and that'll actually help his MVP case. I think if he falters there, that's going to kind of hurt him since it's not till after the season now. Portland and OKC. Portland was the 3 seed last year and got swept by the Pelicans in the first round.
Yeah.
And without Nurkic in the middle, I think that is going to hurt them a lot, especially because now and Cantor's there, but he's not a great defensive big, so they're going to struggle to stop Russell Westbrook and Paul George from penetrating the lane and getting easy buckets. And then Denver, San Antonio, I think that this is, Denver just too talented at this point. I think that, LaMarcus Aldridge and DeMar DeRozan are definitely really good players, and it's a Greg Popovich team, but I still think that it was good for Denver to get this matchup. I think against OKC, which OKC is actually a pretty inconsistent team, but I think in the playoffs they'll be more consistent. It'll be harder. It's good for Denver since they haven't been in the playoffs in a while, and this young core hasn't ever made the playoffs. It's going to be good for them to have San Antonio in the first round because it'll still be a good test. Might drop a game or two, just getting used to that playoff atmosphere, but I think they get out.
Yeah. Yeah, so, and also I want to point out, we're recording this on Thursday, April 11th. The regular season just ended last night, so all these are set. We're going to upload this Friday the 12th, and then the playoffs start Saturday the 13th, just to let you guys know. So that's pretty much the first round matchups. I like what you said about, the Harden and the MVP race now being after the season. I didn't think about that, but that's going to be huge now because obviously Giannis having the best regular season team, that gives him an advantage, I'd say, in the MVP race with the voters. But if he chokes and they get out in the first or second round, that could really hurt his case and pretty much lock it up for Harden. So that'd be very interesting to see too.
Since Milwaukee has Boston in the second round, I don't see Detroit winning.
Right.
But if, let's say, Milwaukee only makes it out in 6 or 7, and then loses to Boston, and then Houston is able to get by Utah and push Golden State, since they went around the same spot, it's kind of hard. I think that would go to Harden. So, but if Milwaukee's able to make a run either to the Eastern Conference or even NBA Finals, and Houston loses in the first round to Utah, I think that it's pretty much locked up for Giannis. But it's going to be interesting to see how these games play out. That's why I think it would have been good for Houston, because I mean they were only a game out of second place. It would have been a lot better for them to get over on the other side of Golden State and have San Antonio in the first round versus Utah and second round Golden State if they make it out of there. So
I do also want to point out that a lot of people, this is kind of sidetracking, but I have a point to it. A lot of people will point out how they think LeBron has made a mistake going to the Lakers. I just want to point out that this is very refreshing because for the last 8 years, when you look at the playoff bracket, you just pick the Cavs or the Heat, whichever team LeBron was on. That's who was going to the finals, and this is very refreshing. I'd say. I'm sure you could agree.
Because you don't know.
Because you don't know. I mean, obviously the Bucks have been the best team this year, but the Raptors are really good. I mean, the 76ers, we know at full strength they're really good. The Celtics, so
the last 4 years have been Golden State, Cleveland,
right? And the Warriors haven't. I mean, they won 57 games. That's still absurd, and they added DeMarcus Cousins, but they haven't been as dominant because the rest of the league has gotten good. So I know I started with LeBron and seemed like I was going off on a whole, but I had a point to that. It's very refreshing how it's kind of not a clean slate, but it's new. And
Golden State's going to have the team that almost beat them in the conference finals in the second round, and then still have
and Denver. I mean, the Nuggets haven't been real contenders since Melo, maybe. I don't even know if they're a contender with Melo. So I mean, it's been a while. So it'll be really fun. But I think we're gonna move on to
so we can get to the awards race since it still has the playoffs kind of decide some of these awards at least.
Right.
But I guess we can start off with, what do you want to start off with? Choice.
Let's start Rookie of the Year because both of those guys aren't in the playoffs, so that's kind of...
All right. You can go ahead and
start. Okay. Rookie of the Year, as much as I would love to give it to the man Trey here in Georgia and Atlanta, I'm going to have to go Luka. I saw he became the fifth rookie ever to join the 20 points, 5 rebound, 5 assist club with LeBron and some other greats, which is extremely impressive. And I really think it's been his award to lose all year. Obviously, we've talked about Trey had a great second half to the season. And, I mean, I believe Trey has averaged better numbers than Doncic since the All-Star break. Doncic still has, had triple-doubles and great games. This is a close race. I mean, it was very similar last year with Ben Simmons and Donovan Mitchell. Extremely close race. I think it'll still go to Doncic, but I would not be surprised if it goes to Trey because he just took the league by storm. I mean, he hit game winners. He hit 30-footers. He was just super exciting. And as good as Luka is, I mean, you'd love to see either of those guys play, but Trey has that exciting factor, kind of like Steph Curry. People are going to gravitate towards Steph Curry, watching Steph Curry, because he can hit those super deep shots. Not saying Luka can't, but that's not his game. So, just based on picks, I'm going to have to say Luka, but I would love to see Trey win it too.
I think that the only way Trey gets it is if it's a co-rookie of the year, which they haven't done since Grant Hill and Jason Kidd.
Yeah.
I think as good as Trae Young has been since February 1st, Luka's just been consistent all year long. He kind of slowed down a little bit, but he's in that slowing down. He's still averaging 20 and whatever else. And even he didn't play the last game of the regular season, which allowed Trey to pass him for total points on the season. But the game before that, he had a triple-double. So it's Luka's just been consistent all year long, been incredible. I still, he's going to be great. I think Trae Young is also going to be, this class is just really deep. There's a lot of guys that in other years could win Rookie of the Year or at least be up there. And then there's some of those guys who are going to be on the second team. So it's just going to be, I don't think that Trae will win it, but both these guys are going to be in the league for a long time, be really good players. So.
And it's kind of do you want, if I want a guy to go get me a triple-double, I'm picking Luka. If I want 30 points and maybe 10 assists, I'm picking, Trey. It's just they got different games. They're different players.
They both hit clutch shots. Yeah. Trae Young had one triple-double, but both can shoot the ball, both can score.
Both can share the ball really well.
And they both have, really good passing ability, which is just fun to see.
Yeah, they're two very exciting rookies, and the league is in
for sure
very good hands for a while. So, move on to maybe most improved.
All right, most improved. That works for me.
Okay,
I think there's a lot of guys that deserve it. There's a lot of guys that have improved a lot this year, but I think you have to give it to D'Angelo Russell. He led the Nets to the playoffs. He didn't play. He got traded from the Lakers. Didn't play much last year because he was hurt. And this year he got them to the playoffs, which I think it's even more of a publicity thing since the Lakers didn't make the playoffs and then with the whole Magic Johnson thing, it's everybody's D'Angelo Russell, he's leading the team. It's just really incredible to see even the Magic said he wanted a leader. That's why he got Lonzo and traded D'Angelo Russell. So I think that it's D'Angelo Russell. There's guys like Pascal Siakam, who's been great. John Collins has been great. But, John Collins is in the playoffs. Pascal Siakam, he still has Kawhi Leonard. He still has Kyle Lowry. D'Angelo Russell, as much as his stats have improved, he's also improved as a leader and as a player. And it's just really, fun to see.
Yeah, and that was going to be exactly my point is that, I would say D'Angelo Russell right now as well. Obviously, Noah said you got Pascal Siakam, you got De'Aaron Fox, Buddy Hield. I mean, John Collins is in that debate, obviously. But the difference is D'Angelo Russell has taken control of his team. Like Noah said, Pascal Siakam is on a team with a superstar in Kawhi Leonard. John Collins got Trae Young. I mean, Trae Young's a rookie, but I wouldn't put either of them as the superstar of the Hawks right now. Right. They're both pretty good, and then Buddy Hield and De'Aaron Fox are on the same team. They're not really. They haven't. One of them hasn't.
And I think had they made the playoffs, I think it would help them a little bit more.
So. Right. One of them hasn't elevated to that star of the team. That guy, they're both really good. But like Noah said, D'Angelo Russell took the Nets to the playoffs. They've got some really, really good players around him, and Jared Allen, Spencer Dinwiddie. Karis LeVert had a great start to the year, got injured. Now he's back healthy for the playoffs. So that's good. But yeah, the fact that he took Brooklyn to a 42-40 record after, I believe, 27 wins last
Something
year,
like
26 wins last year. Huge increase in wins and a 6 seed in the East. I mean, I know it's the East, but a 6 seed for the Nets, I'd have to give it to D'Angelo Russell. And now he's averaging 21 points a game, too, which we never thought we would see that when he was with the Lakers because of how he played. But
just like another thing is, you got Detroit's an 8 seed, and they have Blake Griffin, Andre Drummond, 2 guys who've I don't remember
All-Stars.
All-Stars.
Well,
Reggie Jackson.
Drummond wasn't this year, but he has been.
Right. They both, and then Reggie Jackson, he's been a name in the league since he was with OKC.
Yeah.
And then, if you think about the other guys on Brooklyn, Jared Allen and Spencer Dinwiddie, as good as they are, they're not like household names yet.
Right.
So it's like he took these guys rather than some of these other teams who are still like really good teams, but they have bigger names.
Right.
So
yeah, that's true. All right.
We can move on to Sixth Man of the Year.
Okay.
Lou Will.
Yeah.
I don't think.
Lou Williams.
It's his award.
We'll move on. No, but I did see. I'm pretty sure he is first all time now in bench points.
I'm sure he is.
Yeah, he's broken a few records this year.
He's averaging 20 a game off the bench.
Always great, Lou Will. I mean, he's on the Clippers right
yeah.
now. Yeah. So, and that's another thing that helps too, is because the Clippers don't have. I mean, that star guy you'd say.
Their star comes off the bench. So
right.
It's like
right. It's Lou Will.
dynamic.
Yeah. So. That one's pretty easy, which is awesome that he's winning it this late in his career, because I don't know how many times this is for him.
Yeah, it's a number.
4 or 5 at least, probably.
Yeah.
But, all right, so does that leave... Oh, we got coach.
We got coach, defensive player, and then we can go to MVP. So we can go with coach first.
Okay.
I think there's definitely like a number of coaches whose teams have gotten a lot better, but I think the one that I would give it to is Mike Malone, who's the coach of Denver. They made the jump from not making the playoffs to being the 2nd seed, and they were first for a while there.
Yep.
And Nikola Jokic is he's one of the best centers in the league, could be All-NBA first team, possibly second, depending on what the judges do. But I think he, basically returned the same guys and got them to a much higher seed, which a lot of them were improved. But I think, some of the other teams could be like Coach Bud in Milwaukee. I don't know who else you could give it to, but I think because, the Bucks have Giannis, they've made the playoffs in the past. I think those are the factors that I'd give it to Mike Malone for, that new playoff experience and lack of
I'd probably say Malone too. Obviously, Budenholzer's up there. You really got to look at the top seeds. Like, what's a new team that just made it to like a really high seed out of nowhere that we didn't really expect, and that'd be Denver. So I think you give it to them. Obviously, I mean, you could say Brooklyn's coach. I don't know who it is at the moment, but I mean, they're a 6 seed, which doesn't seem great, but because they came from 20-something wins and, have taken a team of, not insane talent to the playoffs, he could be in the conversation, but it's probably going to be Malone or Coach Bud for sure.
And also you could, the Clippers are the 8th seed, but Doc Rivers, without a true star at all, got them to the playoffs, which is obviously hard out west because LeBron couldn't do it.
I mean, we look at
with a lot of
the Clippers are the 8th seed in the West. They're 14 games above 500, and the 8th seed in the East is 500. So that just puts into perspective, even though the Rockets fell to the 4 seed, they'd be the 3 seed out west. Towards the top, it's a little closer for both sides, but towards that bottom, it's really, really tough in the West. But
yeah, and then so defensive player of the year. I'm going to give it to Rudy Gobert again.
Yeah.
And I don't think that you can make arguments for other guys, but I think Rudy Gobert is going to be like one of those guys, like Dwight Howard, I think for a couple of years in a row was defensive player of the year. There's a couple other guys that have done that. I think Rudy Gobert is going to kind of have this award locked down for as long as he wants.
Yeah, I think at the halfway point when we made our All-Star video, I believe I said Paul George. Yeah. I'm also going to say Rudy Gobert because after he got snubbed from the All-Star team, I feel like he wanted to take it to another level and just prove why he should have been an All-Star. And a guy on Twitter, Andy Bailey, that me and Noah follow a lot, Rudy Gobert is big, he rebounds a lot, he blocks shots, he's not a huge scorer, but he puts up those numbers that you don't necessarily see in the stat book, like the wins above replacement and
the advanced stats,
efficiency, stuff like that, the advanced stats. Rudy Gobert is huge in those and a very, very key player for the Jazz. So yeah, I'm gonna have to give it to Rudy Gobert as well.
He also, he doesn't get enough credit offensively because he doesn't really create his own shot. He can't shoot the ball that well, but he dunked the ball over 300 times this year, which led the league by a long shot.
Wow,
so
I didn't even know
if that. It's like 300 whatever. If you think about it, that's an average of 4 dunks a game.
Yeah.
So
you could put it as he does what he needs to do.
Right, exactly. You check the stat sheet and he'll have like 15 rebounds, 4 blocks, and he'll have 18 points on 6 shots or 8 shots or whatever. It's because free throws and easy buckets.
Right. He does
very
what he's
efficient.
do, yeah. Has a big guy like that.
All right. MVP.
Okay.
Who do you got?
Well, now that, as we talked about, it's after the season, or after the playoffs, that completely changes it. Because I think towards the end of the season, people have been, obviously Harden had the huge stretch, and while he was having that stretch, it was Harden's going to win it. And then I feel like after he kind of, either we got used to that stretch, or he wasn't putting up as big of numbers. Obviously, he lost his 30-point game streak and stuff like that, but people started gravitating back towards Giannis. And I've seen graphics of Giannis stats this year up next to Shaq and some of Shaq's best years, because Giannis is averaging
like
12, 13 boards and like 27, 28 points, which is crazy to think, because you don't think of those two guys as the same, Shaq and Giannis.
Yeah, no.
But their numbers are very similar, which is super scary to think about. Giannis is just a freak, and I'd say if it ended right now, they'd probably give it to Giannis. He's young. He's probably the new face of the league. Harden, obviously, I don't know. This is one of the toughest MVP debates, because this is the first player to average. Harden's the first player to average this many points per game since Michael Jordan, and Michael Jordan is the GOAT. Like I mean, this is a very, very tough debate, and the playoffs may decide it, which I think is really good for the league, because if the Bucks make it to the finals, I think Giannis gets it. But man, if Houston can upset Golden State in the second round, and Harden has a couple 50-point playoff games, that's gonna be absurd. It's gonna be close.
I think Harden, just kind of talking about it, I think that Harden is not gonna be able. He can still score obviously without free throws, but the playoffs are a more physical game. They're less likely to get calls, and defense is more serious. So he's gonna get the best defender every single play down the court, rather than sometimes in the NBA, we kind of missed the rotation. Okay.
It's a 20-point game
in
the regular season.
But playoffs, it's nonstop the whole time. So I think Harden will still be very effective, but I don't see him scoring. If somebody scores 50 on you in the playoffs, then that's kind of bad. But I think that if they give it to Giannis, and Giannis and Luka should win it hand in hand. So because Giannis has been consistent all year long, Luka's been consistent all year long. But if they're going to give it to Harden because of the huge run that he had, then they need to give it to Trae Young because of the huge run that he had. They just need to stay consistent with that. I know year by year it changes, but you can't be different in the same year. So if they're going to maybe give it co-MVPs, co-Rookie of the Years, I wouldn't be opposed.
I would argue, though. I would argue that, so I understand what you're saying about Harden. Had the huge thing. But I would say we can't knock the guy. We can't say he's inconsistent. I would argue that we can't say he's inconsistent because he scored 50 points a bunch of times and then went back to 28. You get what I'm saying?
I'm saying the first, not the first month, the second month of the league, Trae Young was crap. Not bad, but his stats weren't. The Rockets started off the year, 4-14, and Harden wasn't getting stats.
Yeah.
And then, he started turning on, and then, as of late, he probably still has had a 50-point game, but it was a stretch. And, Trae Young since, February 1st and probably part of January has been really good.
On fire, yeah.
So it's obviously the Harden stretch was a little longer, and Harden's been incredible, but I'm saying it kind of needs to stay consistent along with that.
Right.
That would be my prediction. So since I have Luka winning it, I'm going to have Giannis winning it too, simply because of the longevity, and I guess the playoffs will be a huge factor, seeing who's able to actually match up in the playoffs.
Yep.
But I think, Giannis has that personality that, he's here, he's in the playoffs, and he's going to show well. I think this is not really super basketball related, but the whole Space Jam 2 thing, they asked Giannis to be in it, he said, no, I missed 2 weeks of workouts. And it's what's 2 weeks of workouts over the summer to a guy as good as you? But it just means that much to him. He's got that Mamba mentality, like you'd say about Kobe.
Yeah.
So I think that, since he's in the playoffs, I see him showing well, despite, there is some things like his shot that you can kind of force him to shoot threes. If he beats you shooting threes, then you were going to lose. But it's I still think, you can make Giannis shoot threes, and I still think he gets to the basket. He's a hard guy to guard. So
And Giannis, dude, they're building a court for LeBron to practice while he's on set. So just keep that in mind. But anyway, so it'll be very, very fun playoffs. We'll probably come back closer to the end of it. Obviously, it's going to go for a month, 2 months throughout the entire playoffs. So they start Saturday the 13th, like I said. I think that's about it, right?
Yeah, I mean, we can talk about some Magic Johnson stuff.
Oh, right.
And kind of enlighten us on that.
So Magic Johnson obviously stepped down as the president, I believe, of the Lakers. Came out of nowhere. He didn't even tell Jeannie Buss. He told no one, apparently. I don't even know if he told, like, family members or anyone close to him.
Yeah, I saw a report that said he hadn't told his closest best friends that they had no idea what was happening.
Right. So, very surprising. I think, I feel like as him being a former player, he felt like, oh, I'm a former player, I can just be a general manager, be a president, be an owner, and it'll be nonchalant. It'll be, I got this. This is my team, and I can make some decisions, yada yada. Mm-hmm. But then, as soon as he got a superstar in LeBron and had a team that was like, okay, you need to win and you need to make important decisions, it was kind of too much for him. And he talked a lot about he doesn't like being able to have fun, not being able to have fun and congratulate players like Russell Westbrook and other players because it's tampering. So I think it was just a mess. I feel like his first season, I think, was last year's first season as the president. I believe this was his second.
I think this was his second.
I feel like he was just kind of flying under the radar a little bit. I mean, people knew he was the president of the Lakers, but he wasn't making huge moves. I mean, obviously he let go of D'Angelo Russell and Julius Randle and those guys, but that was kind of in preparation for LeBron, I guess. But yeah, just he didn't make great moves, and I heard Shaq talking about potentially Jerry West being a candidate for the new president of the Lakers. I don't know. And also him and Jeannie Buss, the day before he stepped down, apparently met about she was giving Magic the ability to do what he would like with Luke Walton. Fire him, keep him, whatever. And I heard Magic say, or I didn't hear him say this, but that's a big decision. You're going to have to tell someone you're fired, and you've been working with them for a couple of years now. So I don't know. I think it was just a lot to handle for him. I mean, what do you think about it?
First, I thought it was kind of funny the way he made his comments. People were comparing it to Michael Scott. I thought that was absolutely hilarious.
I think that's what I said.
Yeah.
I saw that, like, I don't want to have to do this to people or whatever. It was Michael Scott.
Yeah, like, it was like, he was in a leadership, business role, saying he didn't want to do that. So obviously he didn't fit the role. I just thought that was kind of funny.
Yeah.
But I think, it is a hard position to be in, going from being a player to that role where you can't, you don't have specific freedoms because you're under contract, and, there is league rules. You probably got fined however much money you did. But I think Jerry West, that's actually very interesting that he could be the new president of the Lakers, since he was the guy behind, Golden State's team.
Yeah.
And now he's in LA with the Clippers.
Yeah.
And, obviously they haven't gotten a huge name. They've gotten rid of some of their big names, but they're still a really good team. I think that's really interesting. So
I don't know if he's a serious candidate, but Shaq did mention his name as being a guy who could do great for the Lakers.
So where do you see the Lakers going from here, real quick?
Well, they got to sign a big name free agent, and I think it's pretty much between Jimmy Butler, Klay Thompson, and I mean, there's been talks of Kawhi. I mean, really, there's been talks of every big free agent going to LA, but they got to get one guy, I think. They got to get at least one guy. They're going to get a pretty good draft pick this year, so if they can get a nice rookie to pan out, that'd help. But they're going to be in the playoffs next year. If they're fully healthy, keep Ingram, keep Kuzma, keep Lonzo. If they're fully healthy with the team they have right now, they should be in the playoffs next year. Yep. But add a big free agent, add a good rookie, they could be in the mix for a middle seed in the West, I think.
But if this organization's in shambles, what makes you say that big time? I mean, like, obviously you're going to LA. You're going to play with LeBron.
Right.
What would make, what would make Klay Thompson say, I'm going to take more money and I'm going to go to this organization rather than say Golden State and win?
Yeah, that's a tough thing because I don't know who it was. I heard talking yesterday about LeBron is obviously in the back half of his career. And some of the younger guys in the league now, I mean, even guys like KD who are still, they're pretty far in their career, but they're younger than LeBron. KD and Steph and those guys are younger than LeBron. KD, Kawhi, Kyrie, Klay, Jimmy Butler, they're not young guys, but they're still younger than LeBron, and they still are trying to get their rings, trying to make a name for themselves. So I heard someone talking about those guys, like, why would they want to go help LeBron cement his legacy and be better than them? You know, why would KD go to the Lakers to help LeBron get a couple more rings so LeBron stays above KD? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It'd make more sense for KD to either stay in Golden State or go to New York with another free agent like Kyrie and, you know, win more rings there. So that's the really tough spot. But, you know, a guy like Clay, a guy like, Chris Middleton even would be huge, because that's not a guy who's going to be the superstar on a team, but that would help. So it's going to be really, really difficult. I mean, I believe Jimmy Butler and Kawhi are from LA.
I'm not sure, actually.
Or Kawhi. I think Kawhi is, because I know there's always been talk about that. But Jimmy Butler has some ties to LA, so that'd be the only other way I'd see if a guy's got, you know, ties to LA. But it's going to be difficult.
Because I've seen, you know, talks of possibly Kyrie, possibly Kawhi, but I've seen, you know, them say they're more likely to go to Brooklyn or the Clippers than they are to go to the Lakers or Knicks, despite the huge title of playing for the Lakers or Knicks.
Yeah.
But, I mean, I guess it'll all be interesting to see. We'll see how the draft lottery plays out, because that'll also have a huge role.
Yeah.
But, yeah, I think that's about it for this week of NBA talk. So thank you guys for tuning in. Make sure you guys, if you haven't already, like and subscribe to our channel. And we will see you next time.